All right, and it says we're live.
Yeah, I see it.
Yep. So thank you for joining me. I got with us today Poe the person.
It says we're live.
Hold on, I
Yeah,
got feedback.
that is classic.
Number one. Yeah. Well, I got Poe the person. She's a YouTuber, a mechanical engineer, which I know from the video that I think I first saw you ever in was the one you titled "Female Engineers' Thoughts on James Damore."
Yep.
I think that's also your most popular video.
Yeah, definitely, a lot.
Yeah, I remember when that whole thing happened. I started looking for people also talking about what was going on, and you actually popped right up. So I've been watching you. I guess has that been a year now?
Yeah, a bit more than a year. It's pretty obvious that you already know more than I know about you. I mean, you're called JP. I don't even know what your name stands for. But
yeah, it's John.
I watched a few
on the internet.
Okay.
What's that?
I watched a few of the comedy videos, but I really don't know anything about you. But you seemed like a kind of cool guy, so I thought it'd be worth a chat. It's always nice to meet people.
Yeah, I'm just, this is, I guess, the 7th episode of JP Interviews, and I'm just trying to interview people that I think are interesting. My first 3, I think, went awful. The next 3 got a little better. I'm hoping this one continues the trend. Like, I think we're gonna get some good interviewing going on today.
Yeah.
So I have like a loose format that I'm going to try to follow. There was the intro, but we're going to, I'm first going to ask you 5 W questions, the who, what, where, when, why. Okay. So I just came up with 5 questions that I think might pertain to you just to get to know about you a little bit. And then, we had both watched the Jordan Peterson GQ interview. So I just took some topics from there that I want to get your views on, your opinions on, and I figured we can kind of transition into whatever comes up at that point.
Yeah,
and then again, what's that?
I'm sure we'll find something to talk about.
Yeah, and then at the end I have a little surprise that I just think it'll be a little fun. So the 5 W's that I came up with, first one is who. So if you could answer, who are you and who is it that you want to be?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, I'm just well, I think people who watch my channel kind of know who I am. I'm not very good at pretending to be other people. I'm not very good at lying. So what you see is what you get with me, and it's and I'm not trying to sound pretentious or like I'm like it's noble of me to be truthful and honest. It's just that I'm really way too anxious, and I suppose what do you call it? I'm too self-conscious to trying to pretend to be anyone else. But what I'd really like to be is just someone who is honest with themselves, right? So I want to get smarter, and not just in terms of information and knowing a lot of things, but I want to get wiser. And I think that doing a YouTube channel kind of helps with that sort of thing. I went on a communications course recently. I talked a little bit about it in a video, and the guys at the running the course said that if you're talking, you're not learning. And at that point, I just thought that is completely wrong. Of course, it's like there's a sense in which that's true, but I still think that if there is some learning you can do if you're talking honestly about what you're thinking, the reactions you have, like the things you feel, and you're reacting to things in the real world. I think you can learn a lot about yourself, and you can learn a lot about life. Does that make sense? I hope that makes
sense to me. I mean, yeah. I haven't watched like all of your videos, but I tune in every now and then, and you've always got something I think interesting to say, and you're usually tackling a lot of the topics that I kind of see in my social media spheres, with the GQ interview, and I think recently you talked about just kind of relationships and the internet, things like that.
Yeah. Well, that's just my YouTube channel and my sort of intellectual life. But quite aside from that, I'm a married woman. Like I said, I'm an engineer. I wish I read more than I do, but I like to listen to audiobooks. I play video games a bit. I wouldn't call myself a gamer, but I'm not really anything. I like to go for walks and play frisbee. I've got a lot of like varied interests with no particular emphasis on one. But I'm not really comfortable saying like I have like I am one thing. Like to give myself a title, I think is would be misleading.
Yeah, I understand that. So I'm going to move to the next one, which is my what question. And they don't all start with, like, you'll see the what comes halfway through the question here, but I think if money were no object, what would you do with your life?
I'd like to be an animator, actually. That's one of my other hobbies is to do drawings. I drew my my profile picture and my little animation, but apart from that,
one of my questions. Yeah, I was going to ask you who drew that.
Yeah, I'd love to be good at animating, and I'm pretty okay at drawing, but I haven't really committed enough time to it to be as good as I'd like to be. And what I'd really like to do is to animate, and that's just something that takes forever if you do it by yourself. But that's really my passion is animation. I love cartoons, I love anime, and that's what I'd love to do, really. If I had no if I didn't need money, I don't think I would want to make money with it. I just want to make like silly little cartoons that I wanted, like not have to make a TV show for other people or anything.
Yeah, I don't know if you share your work at all, but I would love to see more of your drawings and animations or whatever you've worked on already. I
used to have a Tumblr blog. Well, I still have it actually. I just don't post on it anymore. But I used to just post my doodles. But I've been thinking about, because I write down when I'm at work. I'll sometimes write down bullet points, like a thought will come to me about a video, and I'll write down something on that. And then similarly, if I have an idea for a picture, when I'm when I'm in a presentation or something, I'll often just doodle. So on the same page, I'll often have ideas for videos and doodles, which I thought would make a pretty good like a live stream or a video, just like showing off my doodles that I do at work, or just in general, alongside ideas for videos. So maybe in the future.
I used to draw a lot more, but now pretty much I just doodle at work, like you do.
Is your profile picture drawn by you?
What's that?
Is your profile picture drawn by you? Because I've seen you've got a little picture.
No, that one I got. I commissioned that one.
Okay.
I kind of just draw off the top of my head, and anytime I try to draw myself, I'm never satisfied with it, so I won't do it.
Okay. I just draw people. I can draw like objects if I have a reference. I can copy things, but like 99% of what I draw is people and clothes, basically.
Well, I think your avatar looks great, so I think. Well, I don't know if anybody could see it now, but if you go to her YouTube channel and subscribe, it's there.
You have to subscribe though.
Yeah, you have to subscribe, otherwise you can't see it. I don't know why. So the where question, where are you from and what does that mean to you? Like, where are you from and what does it mean to you?
Yeah, England, UK. I'm not going to get any more specific than that, but to be honest, I've been thinking a lot recently with all the EU stuff. If you don't know, if you don't live in Britain, you might not know that Britain is leaving the European Union, and it's brought up a lot of questions nationally about what it means to be British or English. And the even the English flag, if you don't know, there's a Great British flag, which is all the interlocking crisscrosses. But one of those crosses is the St. George's flag, which is just red on white, which is the English flag, which is mostly used for football purposes and is hence kind of a bit demonized. Like it's almost like a, it's a little bit contentious at the moment. Like if you had an English flag in your garden or something, like in your front garden, like outside in front of your house, people might think you're some kind of weird skinhead, or I don't know. Like,
we have our own version of that in the United States.
Oh yeah, I guess so. But I guess your question, I don't really know how to answer it because I've only started thinking about nationalism and patriotism seriously fairly recently, and there's just so much stigma attached to loving your country, or how far is going too far, like how much can you be proud of your country's achievements versus how much should you be ashamed of, for instance, the British Empire, and all the things that are associated with that, a lot of them bad, but also some of them good. So it's really complicated, and I don't know what it means to be British to me, or English.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same. I understand that because I think I'm kind of in the same ballpark. 5 years ago, I would scoff at the idea of being American, but lately, I think like you, my sense of even what that means has been shifting. So,
well, there's a lot of people in Britain who are very dismissive of American culture. They if you bring up Americans where I work, for instance, people will go like, oh yeah, Americans, you know, Donald Trump and guns, and like there's like, you know, all they're all obese, or like it's not as stereotypical as that, but there's definitely a kind of scorn, I think, that's quite common among British people for Americans, which I've definitely become more critical of recently. Like I with sort of investigating libertarianism as a political thing, I've been more romanticizing the American dream, or like the idea of liberty and the you know, and the Constitution and all of the, you know, the founding fathers. And I think I've definitely got some kind of you know, when people like anime too much and they like speak Japanese, they're called a weeaboo. But I think I'm a little bit like that for America now. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what it's called.
That's funny. Yeah, I mean, I guess you know, the UK is an X for a reason.
Yeah, well, I'd like to go to America one day. I've never been, so I'd like to go to yeah, New England and see all the places where the you know, where America first started and all that.
Yeah, I don't like, same thing with as I said about, or as you said about the UK, and as I just said about America. Like, I just haven't even been interested in history until very recently. So I have friends that they can tell me years and people and dates and events and all this stuff about American history, and it's really interesting stuff. But I'm kind of disappointed that I'm 30 and I know like none of it, because I just disregarded it. My attitude growing up was always, well, that's in the past. You know, why do we care about that?
Yeah, yeah. History is fascinating. That's another thing I'd like to learn more about if I had more time and more attention span.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you got plenty of time, and hopefully, maybe one day, money will be no object for you.
Yeah, I hope so. Maybe universal basic income will come along. Not that I'm really hoping for that, but who knows? Like, it's pretty popular at the moment.
If it comes along, take advantage of it.
Yeah, why not?
Okay, so the next one is, oh, I guess we're at when. So when did you first think of doing YouTube, and how long before you actually started?
That's a really good question. I've been thinking about YouTube for years. I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but I was watching, you know, when you watch these videos that are by YouTubers who have millions of subscribers, millions of views on all their videos, and you're watching it thinking like, what is the appeal of this? Like, this looks so easy, you know? So you see these videos and you think like, I could do that. Like, I'm likable. I could make a video. Like, I could, you know, I could just upload every day, and I bet I could get like at least a few thousand. So I was like, for a while I was wondering like, okay, what am I going to upload? Is it going to be my drawings? Is it going to be my guitar covers? And then like this political side of YouTube became really popular and started getting into Jordan Peterson. And then there was the whole James Damore thing, which was like an intersection of like Jordan Peterson plus engineering, like plus like a lot of like biological stuff that I'm interested in, like the, you know, the selfish gene and the blank slate, things that interested me a lot. And I was in a good position to talk about it. So I thought, I'm going to start a channel. And that was like a year ago, right? So I thought, I'll start a channel. I'm going to make bad videos. I just thought like, I'll just like get good at making videos for a while. And then maybe like 2 years after I start, maybe people will actually start watching them. I thought, you know, I was just practicing basically. But my second video, which is about James Damore, which was like always what I wanted to talk about originally, that ended up getting, you know, loads of views. It's got twice as many views as any of my other videos now.
How many views is that? Do you know off the top of your head? Or
yeah, 100,000. It broke 100,000 a few weeks ago.
And how many subscribers do you have?
7,500.
Okay, that's awesome.
A lot of people who watched that didn't subscribe, and the really demoralizing thing about YouTube is that you get to see the graph of like people like clicked on the video, and then after 4 seconds, half of them are gone. You know, like most people, especially with that video, so many viewers dropped off in the first like second, because it's like YouTube just puts it on autoplay and they go, I don't want to watch this. They just click off it immediately, you know.
That is interesting. I never looked at my analytics, but then again, I'm still in like double-digit subscribers. So I do. Okay, first of all, I'm very amazed, and I know it's because of you, but there are 40 people watching right now. That's like the most I've ever had watching live.
Yeah. Well, it was like right before we started streaming, I thought, damn, like my subscribers, apart from the ones on Twitter, like they're not going to know that I'm doing this. So I just did a little stream of the, like I told you, I streamed a link basically to this.
Yeah.
Just so some people would turn it. But 40 is like, yeah, that's about normal for an unannounced stream.
Did you turn off your? Is it still streaming now?
No, I turned it off when we started.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't recognize some of the names in the chat. It's surreal for me.
I'm not looking right now, but if you're here, then thanks for coming, guys, for my channel. You probably a few names that I would recognize, but I'm just going to focus on doing good interview. I'm not going to be paying attention to those guys because they're so distracting sometimes.
Yeah, it can be, but we'll pay some attention to it later. Maybe take some questions or something.
Sure.
And then I guess we did when. So the last one is why, and this one also comes up halfway through the question. What is something important in your life that that you have to do or have to change, and why haven't you done it yet?
Oh, that's such a hard one. There's so much, like, you know, people always have these like aspirations for themselves. Like some people, like, they want to quit smoking or lose weight or something. I'm pretty lucky in that regard. Like I'm very happy with my life. For instance, like a lot of things I have in place, you know, like my living situation, you know, obviously my relationship situation. I'm open work with my friends and family. What I'd really like to do is to stop pulling out my eyebrow hairs, which a few people have commented about. I don't know if you saw, I guess you wouldn't have seen me talking about it, but like half of the hairs in this, like on this side of on this eyebrow, they're missing because I've been pulling them out at work.
Oh man, I bite my nails and I can't stop that. So
yeah, I used to bite my nails and I stopped. I trim my nails now, but now it's like I have to do something. Like when I'm bored or when I'm anxious, I have to do something. So I started pulling out hairs, and like I can't stop myself doing it, and I don't know why, and I wish I could.
Yeah,
that's just what
you even notice when you're doing it half the time.
Oh yeah, I noticed it, and yet I'm kind of like, oh, I'll just keep going. Like it's like a angel and devil on your shoulder type thing. It's like, you should stop. Yeah, but I don't want to.
You are now the second person I've met recently that has pulled hairs out. I think he pulled them out of his head hair, but it's a very interesting. You know, I can't really judge it. I think nail biting is.
Yeah, it's both bizarre. Yeah. I definitely thought I must be going crazy when I first saw like how bad it was getting. I thought, like, this is something that insane people do. Like if you're watching a movie and someone was pulling out their head, you'd be like, that person's crazy. That's how the movie maker would tell you that person was insane.
That is interesting. Somebody in Serious Duffer in chat said, get Poe to look into, I can't even say it, trichotillomania.
Yeah, that's what that's the medical name for pulling out hairs.
Okay.
Sorry. But we just started.
I hear myself.
Sorry, yeah, let's stop now. Also, what I'd like to do is to read more. I wish I could read more. Like sit down with a book, like not an audio book, although I would like to do that more because that's a good way of consuming books. But I'd love to be able to like sit in a chair or on a train or, you know, whatever, and just sit and like read 50 pages and then stop. Right now, it's like I read a page and then I go like, I just start thinking about something, you know? Yeah. I have to read off the page again.
I have a friend that's had some success with just committing to 10 pages a day. He can do more, but he can't do less. And he just allots, you know, 15, 20 minutes to it. And then if you still want to read, continue on. But he said even with 10 pages a day, it's amazing how much you get through in a week, you know, more so than you would have otherwise.
Yeah, definitely. That's starting small is definitely good for building habits, I think.
Yeah.
I'll try that.
Cool. So I think I'm going to definitely try the 5 Ws thing with more people. And, you know, I catered it to the little bit I knew about you. Like everyone else, I'm actually getting to learn Poe right now. We barely talked. I think the 5 minutes we had before this interview was us just figuring out the camera. So
pretty much.
Yeah. So obviously, I guess we're both. You could be described as a Jordan Peterson fan. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I don't really like the word fan because it's short for fanatic, and like it makes you sound like, I don't know, like I don't like the word fanatic or fan. Like I could say like I'm a fan of Game of Thrones, like that for some reason that sits well with me. But if you say fan of Jordan Peterson, that kind of sounds like, I don't know, like I'm enjoying him in a way that I don't think that's actually a good description of the way that I enjoy Jordan Peterson's work.
So Peterson worshiper? Is that?
Yeah, like I don't want to sound like a worshiper. Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess it does have a different ring when you say fanatic and when you're talking about a person rather than like an art, you know?
Yeah, I'm definitely interested by a lot of what Jordan Peterson says, and I'm up for, you know, whatever he's saying. I'm usually like tuned in, going like, I wonder what he'll say this time, you know?
Yeah, and as Stephen Braggs in the chat said, he just says he's fond of Jordan Peterson's content. I think that's a fair way to put it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm fond of it.
Yeah, and I think I saw you met him, right?
Yeah, well, I don't think that's, again, not exactly accurate. I mean, there was a signing where people were walking past him and shaking his hand. And so he signed my book, which wasn't even his book. It was a book by Alexander Solzhenitsyn, which of course he likes, which I just happened to have at the time. So I got him to sign that. And funny. I don't know, like maybe I'm overthinking this, right? But this is crazy. But I shook his hand and I just said like, thank you. Like I looked in his eyes and said, thank you for, you know, just for everything. And I swear he looked at me in a way like, I don't know, like maybe he'd seen my video in James or something. I really like, that's really like wishful thinking. But I kind of feel like there's a chance he saw that video, you know, and he was like, oh, like he was kind of trying to figure out why he recognized me or something.
He maybe did. And that's pretty awesome. He also does just have like a really powerful, like when he, like I've met him also, and when you engage with him, he's very astute. You know, yeah, very intense.
Maybe he was just being intense.
Yeah, but who knows? I tagged him. I tried tagging him in the retweet for this live event. You know, maybe he'll watch it. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I think he reads tweets. You know, like he does seem to respond to some tweets. So I think it's possible he read the tweet at least.
That is true. I've got him to tweet back to me twice. Once was like when the Bill C-16 thing just happened.
Oh, really?
And it wasn't that big, and he like, you know, I was still trying to figure him out, and I tweeted something like, I don't think Jordan Peterson takes the Bible literally. And he retweeted, he's like, how could you? You know, like, he's like, no duh.
Yeah, he must have been like hot off the presses. Like he probably didn't have that many subscribers or people on his Twitter at that point.
Yeah, certainly not as big as he is now. I mean, Jesus, he's become like a strange intellectual superstar. But and then recently I got him to respond. I tweeted at him that I'm low in agreeableness and low in neuroticism. And he retweeted me and he said, you know, he said that those were typical male, that was a typical male profile. And he gave me advice just to go out of my way and purposely be nice to people every now and then, just in case. So I thought, yeah.
I've been needing to do that test, by the way. Like that's one of the ideas I have in my pocket. If I ever run out of ideas, I'll just do a understand myself test and talk about Myers-Briggs and like all of those personality type tests. So
have you not done any of them, or?
No. Like I've been skeptical of personality type tests and like quizzes and questions and that sort of thing for a while. That's just, I guess that's my bias. So the idea of taking an understand myself test seems a little bit pointless to me. Like you're putting in information and the algorithm is telling you, it's just putting the information you put in different words. You know, like I understand how it might help a little bit, but it's just an algorithm, right? Like it can't tell you anything you didn't already tell it.
For me, like I think the most interesting part is if it does start to notice correlations between answers and kind of groups you with other people who have the same correlations, right?
Yeah.
So I think in that way, it's the cohorts are nice to look at, but it is self-reported, so there's a huge bias. Actually, with those, I try to get my friends to take the test for me and see if I get the same result. And anecdotally, yeah, I've noticed that people who are extroverts tend to get the same result that their friends give, but introverts get wildly different results than what their friends.
No, that makes sense.
Are
you an extrovert or introvert?
I'm an extrovert. Do you think? How about you?
I don't know. I mean, I haven't taken the test.
What would you assume if you?
I would think I'm actually an introvert. Although I think I'm quite good with people, I also I get tired very quickly of talking to people, especially like small talk, like people I don't know, people I'm like, if I'm talking about something I'm not interested in, I get bored very quickly. I mean, that's kind of, I guess that's kind of tautological, but Yeah.
I used to hate small talk. I still kind of, I mean, it's not the end goal, but I used to really hate it, and I realize it's because I'm not good at it.
Yeah.
Deeper talk, but somebody put it like this to me recently, and I really liked it. They said, small talk, get good at doing small talk because you are easily able to give people the best gift you can ever give them, which is the gift, which is the opportunity for them to talk about themselves.
Yeah,
like, okay, fair enough. And if you give them that, then you can get to the deeper conversation, hopefully.
Yeah, definitely. Like something I always do when I meet women now, which says maybe sound like some like really shallow person, but rather than if I go to a party and I'm trying to talk to girls, I just compliment them on like a piece of clothing that they're wearing. Like I say, like your shoes are, like I don't lie about it. Like if I actually like their shoes, I'll just say like your shoes are great, and then they'll usually just launch off into like, oh yeah, I got them in this place, or like, yeah, I got them because, or like, oh yeah, your shoes are cool too. Like it's a really good way of, it's like small talk, but it's a little bit bigger, you know?
Yeah, no, and I'm not good at lying, and I hate lying. So like if I didn't actually think their shoes were great, I would find something that I liked about them.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
There's a risk that comes with that, because then you get asked to elaborate, and then I lose there.
Nobody, if you give someone a compliment, they never ask you to elaborate. That never happens.
Oh, well, I don't know. Maybe it's the way I do it. I always find myself putting my foot in my mouth. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to avoid those at all costs.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm getting better at it. Something Peterson actually had talked about, where he's worked with people who were really shy. They couldn't go out and talk to others. And he found out that they didn't even know how to say hello or how to shake hands, or I guess, in my case, how to have small talk. So I really do think that, like, something I've been trying to recognize in myself is anytime I feel like I hate something, I just assume that I'm not good at it, and I try to get better at it. And if I'm good at it and I still hate it, then maybe it sucks. But if I'm not good at it, then maybe I should. Yeah, and you had mentioned in one of your videos, so you're pretty good at math, right?
I'm okay. I'm actually really bad at mental maths. Like I was like very bad at maths in school, right up until we started teaching algebra, and algebra made sense to me. But like before that, we were just doing like, what's 5 times 8? And I'm like, oh gee, like I just can't figure that out in my head. I can do 5 times 8. That's easy. 5 times anything's easy. But if you ask me like what's 8 times 12, I'd be like, I'd have to like literally write it down. Usually I just use a calculator, but if I couldn't use a calculator, I'd have to like, I'd have to take a few minutes figuring it out.
So are you saying you got through algebra without being very good at arithmetic, or are you saying that taking algebra helped you with your arithmetic?
No, I mean, when they started teaching algebra, the arithmetic is like, it doesn't require arithmetic anymore, because it was like, before that they were just teaching you how to do subtraction, multiplication, all that sort of thing. And then algebra, it's like the hardest thing you have to do is like divide by 2, or divide by like small numbers, or times by small numbers. Like it's always like 2x and 4y. It's not like 26x and 15y.
Right. So you're able to get the concepts because they're starting you with like easy numbers.
Yeah, and often they give you a calculator as well for a lot of them. Like when you get quite advanced, they don't bother testing you on your mental maths abilities. They just give you a calculator. So then after that, I was like, I was great at that.
And you must be, I mean, so you do engineering, right?
Yeah.
So I'm guessing lots of math, but lots of calculators. Is that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, and I only thought about math because that's one of those things where you hear people all the time saying that like math sucks. And if you do the thing that I'm realizing, you go, no, you're probably just not good at it.
Yeah, I don't think anyone who's good, like people who are good at maths, I think all of them like kind of perversely enjoyed it. Like there is a satisfaction, like the way that people do Sudoku puzzles, right? Like people who aren't even good at maths, like they do a Sudoku puzzle because it's kind of satisfying to fill in the unknowns with numbers. Like you fill up that puzzle with things that you found out, and that's like what algebra is, and a lot of like advanced mathematical equations. Like once you do it, if it's not too hard, you have to bash your head against it for too long. It actually is very satisfying to do it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I I mean, you're right. I just didn't realize, like, I was doing Sudoku puzzles when I was a kid, and I tried like the Einstein puzzles where you have like the truth tables, where it's
I don't
like
know what that is.
it's like one of those puzzles where it's like Cindy lives next to the person who owns a cat. The person who owns a cat doesn't drink coffee, and you start
Yeah.
taking all the different
Yeah.
logical statements throughout.
I didn't know they were called that.
But yeah, that's a good point. Maybe that's a good way to get people into math, is to just have them doing those puzzles and playing those games.
Yeah, that's
before
that's something I'd like to do. Like another one of those questions, like what would you do if you if money was no object, right? I did for a while think about starting a completely different channel, teaching maths, like not like number file, you know, like not like the really advanced maths, just teaching people like basic level algebra and like differentiation and calculus and stuff, but in like just teaching it in a way that makes it into not just numbers on a page, but like teaches it in a way that you think about the concepts in space. You know, like instead of thinking about, I don't know, people get so wrapped up in like what's written on the page, they kind of forget. I think they find it hard to see that the things like what's written on the page is just representing a real thing. And if you can think about the real thing, it's actually a lot easier to get your head around.
Yeah, it's a trick my physics professor used to use a lot. He would try to show us something, and people were really stuck with it. And then he would just tell the same problem, but he would deal with money, and all of a sudden, everyone could do it.
Yeah,
very strange.
Yeah, exactly. Like the so cliche to go like, well, if you have 4 apples and then 8 people each give you 2 apples, how many apples do you have? But you can also do that. I mean, it takes a few different like steps of abstraction, but you can also do that with very advanced mathematics, not just arithmetic. I think it just takes a little bit of extra time to teach it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I went to a school that did everything through word problems. They followed like the Harvard curriculum, even though it was a community college. And the way we learned calculus, like doing integrals, calculus 2, we had problems where we had to take water out of a pool and calculate how much work it would take. And you know, as water is being taken out, the further down you get in the pool, the higher you have to lift it, right? So it's just like it was really hard. Word problems are really hard for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But once you get it, you really get it. It's no longer just numbers on a paper.
Yeah. Well, what I really liked was, I think that's why I sort of went into engineering, actually. It's because of mechanics, which is a module of the maths A level, which is like high school level study. And all of it is about like objects in motion. Like it's called mechanics, but it's not really about what I would call mechanics. It's about objects in motion, like inertia and gravity. And like, you know, I remember like I was like 15 years old before I heard someone say that if you fire a bullet out of a gun, it'll reach the ground. If it doesn't hit anything, it'll reach the ground at the same time as if you just dropped the bullet, because the horizontal motion has no effect on the vertical motion.
Unless
and that's like, it's like it's counterintuitive, right? Like for some reason it feels like it would take ages for that bullet to hit the ground, but the bullet drop is the same whether you fire it or whether you drop it. And like that's just one of those things that it's like you can visualize it, right? It's not just like numbers on a page. It's like you can imagine this thing's like, so it's going at this speed and it's falling at this acceleration, and you know, maybe there's something else, or like I don't know, like I love that mechanical module.
That's one of the ones I remember in college kind of learning and going crazy with it, telling my dad like, oh, did you know this is true? And he's like, what? And then I was doing some weird experiment where like I would take my sneakers off and I was like trying to throw one off the counter and drop the other one. It's funny.
I'd like to make an experiment to prove that, but I didn't. You're right. I'd have to think about that. How to make an experiment to show that it's true.
I think you could do it with coins. I think there's a way to do it. You know, you'd have to like get a slow-mo camera to just kind of make sure they're leaving the counter at the same time, right?
Yeah. I'll have to think about that.
Yeah. So I was going through the GQ interview, and here's like some things that I thought were interesting. And I was curious. We talked a little bit about the big 5, and I know you haven't taken it, but where would you say you are in terms of agreeableness? Do you think you're low in agreeableness, high, and
I'm so agreeable. Like I constantly like just bend to other people's will. You know, like I can't get into disagreements with people in real life. Like if they it's a real problem for me. Like I don't know if it's something I need to work on, but I'll just if someone says something that I severely disagree with, I'll often have to be completely quiet about it unless I know I can bring it up without making it into a conflict. Like I avoid conflict like compulsively. It's like I can't stop myself from doing it.
You're not very confrontational.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm the other way around. I was one of the in the understandmyself.com test. I think it gives you like a percent. I think I'm in the bottom 2%, which is weird because it's like, I don't know. I think we're getting along just fine, and I get along with people, I think, when we do agree. But as actually some people in the chat might even tell you, once we do disagree, common criticism I get is that I'm insufferable.
Yeah, fair enough.
I know people like that. Afraid of confrontation, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, I don't. The thing is, I don't mind having a disagreement as long as it's civil. But once I start making another person angry or like making another person dislike me, that'll make me like shrink away immediately.
Yeah, and do you think, well, instead of making it about you, like just in general, do you agree with the findings on like women tend to be more agreeable than men, and men tend to be less neurotic than women, that sort of thing? You did a whole video on it. So
yeah. I don't know, to be honest. I mean, I'm willing to look at the what the literature says about that, but to be honest, it's just hard not to think about all of the like very like confrontational, like very in your face women I know, and then to also think about the very like opposite end men I know. It's like when you look at your personal experience, it's hard to make a kind of generalization like that. Although some of them, of course, are easier. But I think for that one, I really would, I wouldn't be able to say that that's what I've experienced, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, especially with like the minute you said the in-your-face kind of women, I just pictured like Big Red or one of the numerous avatars of feminist. And anecdotally for me, I guess I would say the same as you. I've kind of noticed, and again, this is just anecdotally and kind of my intuition, that when it comes to being agreeable, I know plenty of agreeable men, but women are better at it. And when it comes to being disagreeable, I know plenty of disagreeable women, but men are better at it.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, if that makes sense. Like the result after is usually a little bit more, like the disagreeable man is less unhappy than the disagreeable woman, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'll think about that.
Yeah. So more about Peterson. So what would you say like is one thing you really appreciate about Peterson, and then what's like one deep criticism?
Okay, that's interesting. I love how, I mean, people say this all the time, but there's things that I know to be true kind of just instinctively that I could even probably articulate it to some extent, and then I'll hear Jordan Peterson talk about it when he gets like impassioned about it, and he'll just put it in words that just sounds like, he makes it sound beautiful, like almost like I'm just listening to it and it sounds, it just like, it rings so true. It's like, when people say like, oh, something resonates with me, and it's almost like a physical feeling of having it resonate with me. And that's not like everything he says. That's like maybe 2% of the time he really gets me, he really gets my head nodding, You have
an example front of mind?
Well, I was just thinking about that GQ interview because that's the last thing I watched from him. And when he was talking about ideological possession, he was talking about, I can't even remember what he said is a thing, like I can't even repeat it. But he was just talking about the kind of people who have these ideas that have been almost imposed on them, but they're married to the idea, like they make the idea part of themselves. They make the ideology, the group of ideas, and they become so like fused to it. He didn't use these words at all, but he was just talking about the like ideologically possessed people and how dangerous it is to let ideologies control you rather than to control your own ideas and come up with your own thoughts.
Yeah, no, and I've definitely had the same experience of like, and I think he's even spoken to it. He said that that's common feedback he gets is where people will say, you've been able to articulate something I've already thought or known to be true.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I don't remember, maybe it was in the conversation he had with Brett Weinstein, but like on Joe Rogan, I think they were both on, or was that Ruben? Whatever. I just remember somebody bringing up how, in the Bible, for example, they'll tell you don't, and excuse my French, but like basically don't shit where you eat, and it's like these people, they seem to have known not to create filth where you ate long before we knew anything about germ theory, right?
Yeah, yeah. That's what kosher is all about. Like the kosher, like it dictates of how food should be prepared and what food should be next to other food is basically hygiene theory before germs.
Yeah. Yeah, and I kind of just mapped that to what you just said, because it's like there are some things. Now, can you scientifically and logically say I know it to be true? Like, okay, maybe not. It's on you to kind of prove what you claim. But it does seem that we tend to know things long before we can articulate them, including the what we just talked about with the filth. And it's just really interesting. If we had waited until we had germ theory to stop doing those things, we would have suffered greatly. A lot of people would have got sick and died. A lot more people. So it's really got me thinking now about what kinds of things do we know to be true that we just don't have the scientific tools yet to demonstrate.
Yeah,
and
I think there's definitely an interesting question of like, what standard of evidence do you need before you start implementing these ideas? Because I'd really, if you reckon that there's a difference between, say, men and women, if you reckon from your personal experience that men and women are different on a biological level, maybe because you've had sons and daughters. If you've had 5 sons and 5 daughters, and you might be able to generalize between them, something like that, like you kind of feel that it's true. I still feel like I'd rather wait for science to confirm it before we actually use that to make decisions on things.
So you'd rather wait until we have the science?
Yeah, unless you're like, unless for some reason you have to act, and you have to act one way or the other. I think it's wherever you can, it's better to reserve judgment.
Yeah, and I think people are just going to act in the way that they believe, unless presented with something other. But it's so interesting because in our culture, I guess, without any kind of scientific backing, it seems half the country will think, or half the world, because you're not in this country, but half the world will just believe one way and the other half will believe the other way. And I feel like they're both, actually, I don't know if I'll say that. I would like to believe that they're both equally genuine in their convictions, but I actually don't know if I feel that way.
I do, actually. And I think that's, just to get back to your question about what do I not like about Jordan Peterson, and I think to some extent, I think in some cases, and maybe you're probably going to ask me for examples, but I think in some cases he'll look for explanations that are deeper than seems warranted, because he's likely to think very deeply about problems and go extreme, like look for the absolute lowest common cause that could be causing some kind of phenomena, and maybe come up with some subconscious theory of what's happening, when sometimes it seems, at least from my opinion, that it's more obvious than what he's saying. Like maybe you should just listen to people talk about why they're doing something, and maybe they're actually right. Even maybe they've got some sort of subconscious hang up that's making them act this way, but it's likely that to me it seems that maybe they're just doing it for the reasons they say they're doing it.
Yeah, I think the why women wear makeup is probably a good example of that.
Yeah, to some extent. I mean,
to some extent.
The one I was thinking of was when it was like the first time he said something, and I was like, what? People will go like, when he talked about like the double helix being the double helix symbol being representative of DNA, but like before I even heard of that, even though that was absolutely bonkers, but before that, he said something about how feminists are also seem to be in favor of immigration of Muslims. They seem to be in favor of accepting Muslim refugees, and to me that makes perfect sense, because both feminism and being like very compassionate to the point that they want to help the whole world and bring in the world to, you know, to save them. You know, that kind of compassion to help people almost to a fault is, to me, like almost defines the left. So that isn't like, you don't need to look any further than that, in my opinion.
Yeah, like you don't suffer any cognitive dissonance with that because you have a better, it seems like a decent grasp on why they're accepting these refugees.
Yeah. It's like they're saying that they're doing it for compassionate reasons. They're saying these people are very poor. They, you know, they have a much worse standard of living than we have, so we should be helping them. Like, it's our burden to help people because we've been so advantageous in life. We've, you know, we were born in a very rich country through no through no work of our own, and these people were born in a what Trump would call a shithole country, and they are incredibly disadvantaged through no fault of their own. So, you know, they believe that the help should be going in the direction of, you know, the oppressed people, in the same way that feminism, you know, seeks to help the oppressed. That makes sense to me. But Jordan Peterson at one point said that he theorized, or rather he hypothesized, that perhaps feminists were subconsciously seeking the patriarchal dominance of the Muslim culture. And
I could entertain that line of thinking. I probably wouldn't use the immigration thing as an example, but if I had to guess at his underlying point, and maybe this is just me trying to reconcile it, you know, but maybe he's just saying that that there's a certain kind of neglect, you know, to what he sees as like a really dangerous idea with Muslims coming here from these otherwise, you know, maybe dangerous countries. But I don't know. I wish he would be more clear on that. But yeah. I get your point. So he's going like deep into like the subconscious and maybe pulling in some other ideas when really it's satisfactory to just say, hey, feminists care about those that they see as disadvantaged, and Muslims, like the way they see women, are disadvantaged, so let them in.
Yeah, to the point where they're even willing to overlook the very patriarchal way that they treat women in Muslim countries. You know, the very, like, you know, much more oppressive and much more, you know, there's much more sexism in these countries they're coming from than there is here, and yet they're bringing in more of that culture because I don't know, I don't want to get too much into this, but that I wish Jordan Peterson wouldn't stick his foot in issues where, because it's hard for him, right? Because people ask him questions in Q&A sessions, and he's got to say something. But I almost wish he didn't do Q&As, just for, like, I really want to hear his thoughts after he's spent like a year thinking about them, and he's like written a chapter like in a book, or like he's given a lecture like just about this thing. Because that's when he really shines, is when he's got like one idea that he's looked at from every single angle, and that he spent years thinking about, and you know, and then he comes up with something, and he says it in a really eloquent way that's so persuasive and powerful. And then sometimes he'll just go like, I had this half-baked thought that I you know, like I thought about this thing once. I mean, I'm sure it's like more than that, but
nah, you mean like Kavanaugh should step down? That one? Yeah,
exactly. He just goes like, I mean, like, he like writes 140 characters about Kavanaugh, and then he was like, boop.
Yeah, and I can see the dilemma there, because I want to be able to do that. Like, I use my Facebook feed, for better or worse, in that way, where I just kind of think out loud. And so I've conceded sometimes. It doesn't happen very often, because most of the people on my Facebook that are still around are like, they think like I do. Everyone else unfriended me. Which, by the way, anytime anybody's interested in the James Damore thing, I automatically subscribe to them or whatever, because I feel like that was kind of when I started losing all my friends. The James Damore thing.
Interesting. That's you being disagreeable, I think, because I haven't lost any friends really, because I just won't talk to them about political matters. If I know we disagree, I won't get into it. I'll just talk to them about literally anything else, you know? Yeah,
there's that. And there's also the messenger. Like, I think, I'll speak for myself, but like, as a man, you know, one of the first things, the first person to unfriend me, we had met at improv, and she she messaged me and she goes, "Oh my God, I can't believe you're a sexist and a racist. You seem such like a nice guy in person." I'm like, because I'm not. What the hell? But I do wonder if I was a woman saying the exact same thing, I think she would have adamantly disagreed with me, but she would have felt pity on me, thinking that I was like drinking some racist, sexist Kool-Aid,
Yeah, there is that. Like, that's why I felt emboldened to make a channel already. I think on certain matters, there is a certain free pass for women. Not completely, because there are, of course, women who have been demonized by by the left, and I don't want to make it seem like the left is like some homogenous thing that hates.
I wonder if James Moore's got a lot of like conservative women going after him now. Maybe it's a thing. I don't know. Maybe that's why we don't hear from him much. He's preoccupied.
Yeah. What were we talking about though? Because we were on
I was asking you for criticisms of Peterson, and you offered some.
Yeah. No, that was pretty much it. But no, I felt like there was something I was going to say when you were talking about losing your friends and Jordan Peterson. Never mind.
You had said you haven't lost that many people, and maybe that's to do with your agreeableness.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know whether that's a good strategy or not as a thing, right? Because like I do feel like if I just put up my hand and quietly, tentatively said I voted Conservative in the last election, like if I just said like I didn't start a fight, I didn't like say I didn't like go after anyone. If I just said like I'm more conservative than you probably think I am, whether that would A, not be that disastrous, and B, might actually change the views of like change people's idea of what a conservative looks like. For like a few people, they'd go like, oh well, I didn't know Poe was the kind of person who could be a conservative.
I see. So
not
do you think
conservative, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you think like the longer you don't explicitly reveal that, the more kind of fodder you have, so that when you do reveal it, they're like, oh, okay, interesting. Versus me, well, I'm not even conservative. What Peterson says about himself, his temperament being more liberal, all of that resonates with me 100%. But I share my more libertarian views very bluntly, and people who've just met me they just assume I'm like a conservative libertarian type, and maybe that puts them off to everything I say after. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. If you have like a few years of history of them where they've seen you being a compassionate person, being maybe doing charitable work for the poor, they're not going to go like, oh, you voted Conservative, I guess you hate the poor. I never realized before. It's like they're going to have a little bit of cognitive dissonance there. If you've been a good person before and now you've voted Conservative, and their idea of a conservative is someone who isn't a good person, they're going to have to marry those two facts somehow.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's actually something I bring up with the trans community. I have friends that are trans, both liberal and conservative, and I say, not for nothing, if you really want the idea of being trans or the whole community being taken seriously, you just got to do respectable things out there. Like just go out and be a decent person, start a company, take care of people who need taken care of. That works in your favor. If you really want to hurt it, complain about how you're suicidal. And now people are just creating these maps of how you must be mentally ill. I have my own opinions on it, but trying to be opinion agnostic, I feel like complaining and crying about how much of a victim you are isn't very persuasive.
Yeah, what's interesting is that I was thinking about making a video about this once, because I think playing victim status, if you could call it that, just I don't want to say like doing it on purpose. I'm not talking about like crocodile tears. It can be genuine. Like you can be genuinely complaining about something in your life, and even complaining makes it sound like you're doing it like in a whiny way. But just airing your grievances about things that have happened to you, it's very easy to seem vulnerable, pathetic, whatever. Like that. If you call all of that like victim behavior, even though it's not necessarily a bad thing, I think it's very good at persuading a certain number of people, like the people who are naturally temperamentally left-wing or compassionate. With people who are very empathetic, they actually will be convinced by that, but it won't convince a lot of other people. Like if you're trying to convince people on the right wing who are more pragmatic in their ideas, they're more, focused on, I don't know, like ethics and freedom and that sort of thing, then the victim status, they might go like, oh, sorry. They might feel a bit bad, but it actually won't change their political opinions about you.
Right. And I think if, and again, I'm just being neutral on the matter. If somebody already has a preconceived notion that you're mentally ill and then you complain about how you're suicidal, they're just reinforcing it. They're not.
It's an unfortunate stereotype about trans people. Is like there's a conception that they are mentally ill, and that I don't know what the science is on how many people who are trans also have a comorbid mental illness as well. I believe I've heard some people say that there's a correlation between those two things. Like, aside from whether being trans is a mental illness, a lot of trans people also have mental illness. And you're completely right that if you act like someone who has a mental illness, you're just reinforcing that stereotype. In the same way that a lot of feminists act like, I suppose if I was being ungenerous, I'd call it a whiny bitch, which is like a female stereotype, that's a female negative stereotype that you're enforcing. You're going like, no, women can be CEOs, women can be politicians, women can be anything a man can, but at the same time, you're acting like a woman who could not be any of those things.
Well, that was the whole thing the day after James Damore got fired, because all these women at the company were complaining and they misunderstood what he said to be some sort of attack on them, and they disagreed. They're like, women are not more neurotic than men. And then the next day, like a good amount of women just took off from work because they couldn't deal with the emotional stress. And it's like, you didn't think that one through.
Yeah, I don't know if they that's an interesting one, because I'd love to see like how much they really were mentally damaged by that memo. Like, really, if they really were that fragile, or if that was a case of just like crocodile tears, like, we want this guy fired, so we're going to pretend, or we're going to, extremely amplify how upset we are about this thing.
Yeah, but even if it was like crocodile tear stuff, I just feel so contradictory to your message. If you really want to prove James Damore wrong, you'd stay after and work overtime or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's very interesting. So similar to the last question, what criticisms about yourself do you have? Like, what are things that you could do better on?
Definitely my attention span could do some work. Like I was talking about reading books, but it pretty much goes for everything. Ever since I started YouTube, I like reading my comments, which my commenters love, because they get responses from me if they say something clever or funny. But it also means that if I'm watching a film, often, like if I'm in a cinema, I'll focus, right? But if I'm watching something at home, I'll often get like just itchy, right? Like I want to reach for my phone, and it's not something I like about myself. It's like I feel like a smoker who's just like trying to get up, wants to go outside for a cigarette all the time. It's like I definitely would like to enjoy social media less, or rather, like if I could have half an hour or maybe even an hour in the evening, like put aside for just chilling out in front of the TV, responding to comments on YouTube, and then not look at it at all for the rest of the day, that would be like an ideal version of myself. Or maybe I could do it in the morning when I wake up, because I like doing it in bed, because I don't want to get out of bed, right? So I'll stay in bed and look at my comments, and I'll often respond to people like minutes after I've just woken up in the morning.
Yeah, I have a bad habit with jumping on Twitter and Facebook, and I mean, I could waste a whole night on it.
Yeah. Especially getting into arguments, because people, if someone winds me up, I'll really like not be able to focus on anything else until I've like demonstrated exactly why that person is wrong. Like, it's like if they're just being annoying, that's fine. But if they've said something that's like demonstrably wrong, and I can if I can prove this person is wrong, I will not want to do anything else until I've done that.
I keep having this bright idea, and I've done it a little bit, but not enough, of just like keeping a blog. And anytime I have that sense, really spending the time and writing a blog post or like a mini essay about it. So that way I never have to argue it again. Anytime somebody argues with me, I'll just send them a link. Here you go. Here's my thoughts. And if there's updates, it's no reason you can't update an old blog post.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. Although I think it is, yeah, I think updating it would be the important thing, because you don't want to. I think what's really dangerous is getting stuck on one way of thinking. You know, like if you feel like this is my opinion on this, I've got it written down, and like it's almost uncomfortable to shift away from that because you can see where you used to be. But I couldn't even tell you exactly what I thought about some things that I think about now. You know, my opinion has changed so much that I couldn't even properly articulate what my opinion used to be, probably. And I think that's a good thing because it means I've grown.
Yeah, well, Facebook likes to remind me of stuff from like 5 years ago, or even like I just got a reminder today, right before Donald Trump was elected in, right? Because we're hitting up on election day in America, and it was from 2016, and I'm reading it, and I was arguing against a Trump supporter in the comment section of something that I posted 2 years ago, and now I find myself doing the complete opposite and supporting Trump in many regards. So it's just fascinating to kind of watch. But to your point, if I didn't have Facebook reminding me of what my view used to be, it would have been hard for me to articulate it. It's very strange.
Yeah. No, I do remember thinking, I think it's interesting with the Trump thing, because I think it's been fascinating seeing how it's all played out. And I'm going to continue following American news because I think it's so interesting. What is a president like Trump like? Because he's not like any president that's come before, really. You know, so he talks a big talk, but I'm interested to see what he actually does. And before he was elected, probably from when that Facebook reminder is from, I remember like a lot of other people, I thought like it's impossible for him to be elected because I could only imagine the kind of person who would vote for him would be an extremist. Like I was imagining like these dumb rednecks, you know, like I was, you know, I know that's not very PC or whatever, but that's the kind of people I was imagining were voting for Trump, right? Was like, they can't, you know, I was thinking like there can't be that many rednecks in America. Like I know most Americans like cool people, like, you know, even if they're right wing, like there's no way they'd vote for Trump to be the main candidate. And then like, well, now that he's the candidate, they're still not going to vote for him to be president. Like, you know, I know Hillary's not great, but come on, like, you know, like I do remember quite distinctly like that thought pattern that I had before he was elected.
Yeah, I mean, election day, like that whole week after, really had me wondering how much the media affects my view of the world.
Yeah, yeah.
Never really thought of it before then, but like, I was in the same boat as you. I could not believe it. And now I look back on it, I'm like, no, it actually kind of makes sense. You know, and
yeah,
I had a CEO who did the same thing with Brexit, because when Brexit happened, he was like, oh, you know, it's going to pass, right? I'm like, get the hell out of here. Like, I didn't know enough about it from here. And he's like, no, I really think it's going to pass. He's like, stop listening to the news and just like talk to people. And I'm pretty sure it's going to pass. And I'm like, all right, if you say so. And then it did. So, and then when, you know, then Donald Trump won, and now everybody's just like, wow, we must have found ourselves in a parallel upside down world. But it really is just, I at least my current take on it is the media and just what you engage with absolutely takes a hold of your worldview, even if you think you're immune to it.
Yeah. Well, on the just on Brexit, we had a recent protest, which I thought about going to, but I didn't, just to report on it. I mean, there was a protest of people in London who wanted a second referendum. They want a second vote on the final Brexit deal, not whether we're leaving or whether we're staying, just like the deal that they've got with the EU. They want to be able to vote on whether or not that is the final deal. And basically that was what it was supposed to be, but I think the large proportion of the protesters were actually people who were like, we need to vote again because we didn't vote right the first time.
Yeah.
You know, and like now they are the extremists. Like, of course, there's many thousands of them, right? Like, I think more than 500,000 people were there, was what the news said. But you know, that's still a pretty extreme view. Like, even the people who voted to remain, I think a lot of them are like, just they've accepted it, right? They've gone like, well, I didn't want to leave, but you know, we're leaving. Like they've accepted that that's democratic, and that's, you know, obviously there's enough people to form a protest, and yeah, I still think that's actually a fringe view in England now, is like the idea that we shouldn't be leaving is now, you know, maybe they're thinking like, oh, well, it's going to be bad afterwards or whatever, but I think most people actually believe in democracy. I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I guess we will. So we'll ask. I got one more question, and then I figured we will. Trying to think of the order. One more question, and then I want to go into the chat and see what people were saying there, because I think they're asking some questions, and then I'll do my little surprise question. It's more questions, of course, because it's an interview. Why not? But I had an idea that I'll throw in at the end. So the final question, we had talked about social media a little bit, and Peterson had talked about Twitter in his GQ interview, and he said something I thought was interesting, was that like we don't really understand Twitter. Like we don't understand how to communicate in that way, because we're talking to people that are absolute strangers that we don't even know, yet we're talking to them like they're not. We're talking to them like they're our friends or something. So I was just curious what your thoughts were on that, and then like Twitter, Facebook, social media in general.
Yeah, definitely. It's almost like an unnatural state of being. Like, well, before the internet, everybody you talked to was probably going to be someone who was like connected to your life in some way. Like if you go back thousands of years, which is when we spend most of our time evolving, our brains, for like our social brains, are evolved for face-to-face reactions with people who mattered. Like even if you didn't like them or whatever, they were like people who you were going to see again at some point in your life, which is like the opposite of Twitter, because you're talking to these people who really their opinions shouldn't matter to you, because it's just one guy and they're on the other side of the world probably, or maybe they're not, but their opinion actually doesn't matter. Like if they think you're a bad person, if they think, you know, if they think you're wrong, if they think you're stupid, that actually shouldn't matter, and yet it does, because for a lot of people, I don't know about you, but for me, it's like it's really painful almost. Like it's not a physical pain, but it's like, you know, like I was saying earlier, people who, if I feel like someone out there thinks I'm stupid or thinks I'm like, if they think I'm wrong, they disagree with me, that's fine. If they think I'm stupid, or if they think I'm lying, if they think I'm being dishonest, that really pisses me off, and I want to correct them even if it takes hours. And that's not healthy, right?
Right. Well, and it's weird because it's like I always make this connection when I was in school. Part of the reason you could kind of get into a fight with somebody but then resolve it was because you had to see them again tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Like, you'd see them in the lunchroom. So there was one, it kind of allowed you to just, if things were getting heated, you were like, fuck it, I'm going to distance myself because it'll either blow over or we'll address it another time. Or, you know, I guess I'm saying the same thing twice, or you just address it the next day. Where now it's like with the internet, I feel like if you don't address it right now, they might mute you, they might block you, they might, you know what I mean? They can actually just disconnect from you completely at their whim, which is, I guess, their prerogative, but I think it just changes the way we communicate and the way we anticipate conflict resolution in general.
Mm-hmm. You know what's interesting with that's a good thought, because it reminded me of I don't know if you've read The Selfish Gene by Richard Dawkins. It's a great book, and there's a whole chapter that's just about the prisoner's dilemma. Are you familiar with the thought experiment?
Yes.
Yeah. So the prisoner's dilemma, it's not just a thought experiment, it's also a kind of tool. It's like it's a representation of any interaction with other people that involves trust, of trusting people and getting betrayed versus trusting them and them trusting you back, which is actually a better situation. But just that chapter is so good, because it talks about the difference between when you play the prisoner's dilemma with one person once, compared to if you play the prisoner's dilemma with hundreds of people, hundreds of times each. Like because the optimal solution for what you should do is different. If you're playing with them once, you have to betray them, because like, why wouldn't you? Right? You need to look out for you, and you're never going to see this person again. So the optimal play is to betray them. But the way that our brains have evolved is to assume that this person is important, and you're going to play this game with them. You're going to play this prisoner's dilemma over and over and over again, and you're going to play with every single person you meet, in which case it's optimal to trust them until they betray you, in which case you should never trust them again.
Yeah, well, and that's interesting because that lines up really well with an experiment I've seen using the prisoner's dilemma. I was in college. We went to Adelphi University, and they basically simulated it, and they had all these different agents playing different strategies, and they did a tournament structure, and they ran the tournament like a million times, very, very fast. Right? And they found that the optimal strategy for playing with all of the other strategies thousands or even millions of times was to just copy whatever the other person does.
Yeah.
So if somebody is cooperative, you could be cooperative. If they like, what's the term that they use in the prisoner's dilemma? Defect, I guess, or
defect. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Not
if
great.
they defect, then you should defect. But if they start cooperating, then you should start cooperating. That kind of thing. And that was the most effective strategy in the simulation.
Yeah.
So I think that aligns with what you were saying, which is interesting.
He mentions that in the chapter. He talks about all the simulations that were done with these different tactics, and like, what if everyone around you is using that tactic? Right? If he used the defector strategy and the trusting strategy as he explained it as a dove and a hawk, and like a dove among doves is going to be very, very effective, but a hawk among doves is going to do even better because the hawk is betraying people who are just going to keep trusting him. Like you can do really well if you're one hawk amongst many doves.
Yeah, that is very interesting.
Yeah, you should definitely read it. Like everybody should read it. It's so interesting.
Yeah, well, I can't really show you. I have like a pile of books that are on my to-do list, and I'm not as good at reading to learn. I'm much more of a audio visual kind of person, but I do want to change that.
Yeah, well, maybe I could make a good, because that video that I made about makeup, that was based on a selfish gene chapter. Well, it was based on a selfish gene lesson, and maybe that's something I could do like as a series, is just going into like a talk like that for every chapter in the selfish gene, like all the key points. And maybe Richard Dawkins would sue me, but I think
that'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Don't read from his book. Like, don't read the whole chapter. But other than that, I don't think he can sue you.
It's like, it's so interesting how, like you said, like a lot of people are like you. They don't. Reading is actually very hard. Like it's not something we've really evolved to do. It's like we're evolved for chatting, like for learning from talking to people, not from like getting ideas from words. It's like, to get ideas from books, you always have to feel like they're talking to you, like you read it in their voice, right? So maybe it would be like, maybe that would make the selfish gene accessible for a whole new group of people, the same way that Jordan Peterson has made many ideas accessible to people that they weren't accessible to before.
Yeah, a lot of people reading 12 Rules have said like, oh, well, I already knew all of this because I listened to his YouTube lectures. So
yeah.
Well, cool. So let's take questions from the chat. I saw my Alexa is looking for Wi-Fi. So Sirius Duffer had asked something up above. I think he tagged me so I can find it easier.
What's Poe's take on YouTubers like Sargon getting involved with British politics through parties like UKIP? Is that the question you were thinking of?
Yes. So what is your take on that?
I think it's interesting. I wonder how his history as a YouTuber is going to affect his political success. I mean, I don't really think UKIP has any future because the UK is going to be independent soon, and they're not, like, I don't think there's really anywhere else for them to go. But if he were a serious politician, like an MP, maybe in the Conservative Party, because people do change parties, right? If he became an MP in the Conservative Party, I'd be interested to see how long the media, or like if the media would try to go after stuff he'd said in videos to discredit him, because there's like hours of him talking about different things, and I'm sure not all of it is PC.
Oh yeah, they're going to go through that with a very fine comb.
So, but like, I really think, I mean, Trump is the president, right? Like, Trump is the president of America. Like, this is a guy who, like, says like whatever he's thinking, and like he's said a lot of like extremely un-PC stuff, and like, you know, he's still there somehow. And I feel like maybe that's just the world we're living in now, is like people actually don't care if you're PC or not.
Yeah, it's kind of freeing. It's liberating, in my opinion.
Yeah, I just think it'll be interesting to see, is all I'm saying. Like, I wouldn't like to make any predictions. I don't think it's a bad thing. Like, you know, good luck to him. Like, I'd be interested to see what happens.
Yeah. I don't know enough about UKIP, but to your first point, like, if the UK is going to be independent, then like, what does UKIP do? I hate when organizations or committees are formed for a problem and then the problem's fixed and they stick around. Because then what they tend to do is they look for that problem where it really doesn't exist, or it's like negligible and it's not important. I think that's kind of what's happening with feminism. Feminism did its thing, and now it's like, oh, can we find sexism in, oh, I know, everything. You know, you know that meme where it's like shuffles deck and they just like pull out a. Have you heard that?
Yeah. I love that meme actually.
Yeah, they usually use it with white people, but I think it works for feminism too. Like, I mean, give it a year, chairs are going to be sexist.
Well, they are, you know, because like, you
They
know, I don't know, like I'm just trying to think, like I'm running it through the feminism simulator, and I'm like, men and women have different genitals, like they have different size of buttocks. Why do we have the same chairs? Right? That's not equality.
Good point.
Chairs were invented by men.
So men should have chairs where like a part of the chair dips lower, you know, for comfort.
Now, obviously, the chair is optimized for men, and there's some problem with it that is affecting women. Like
Right.
that's the formula, right? So, like, what is the female chair? I don't know.
I can't even imagine. Actually, all the thoughts I have come off pretty sexist, so I'll refrain.
Let's just leave it there then.
So Serious Stuffer also asked, should YouTubers try to use their platform to advocate for change in the real world? And if so, what limitations and forms of skepticism should we employ when thinking about them?
Oh, I think I actually feel pretty strongly about this, which is the Jordan Peterson philosophy of like clean up your own room first before criticizing the world, right? Like I just made a video today. I haven't uploaded it yet, but it is somewhat talking about these YouTube channels that are very good at persuading people that there's some kind of problem. It's like a kind of like an inconvenient truth type movie, but like anybody can make an inconvenient truth now about any issue.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people online going like, this is the problem with the world, and this is the solution that will fix all of the world's problems because it's being caused by this thing, right? So like depending on what their political alignment is, the thing that's causing the problems is going to be different. But there's people like they could be being completely honest, and they might be very smart people, but I actually think it's extremely dangerous to simplify the world to the point where you think you can solve it.
Yeah, and especially solve it in a means where you're relying on other people. I think that's why Peterson's message resonates the most, is because, like, I mean, there's something appealing about the idea that I can fix a problem. I don't know if that's a male thing or just an individual thing, but like I really like the idea that I can fix a problem. But I've come to accept that even if I can't fix the problem, like I think it's a Steve Jobs quote, but the world is made up of people no smarter than you. So if you can't fix it, what makes you think outsourcing it is really going to fix it?
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot to be said with the kind of like emergent wisdom, if that makes sense. What's it called? Like the wisdom of the crowd, like basically democracy, right? And markets, like the combination of democracy and markets. Maybe I'm going a little bit too libertarian here, but I feel like everybody doing what's best for them and their family and their community, just working, like being the best person they can be and making decisions like, on that basis, I think that would have a better effect than one person going like, this is the problem that we're all going to need to mobilize to solve this,
Yeah. And I forget who, I think it was, do you listen to Milton? I keep wanting to say Milton Bradley. Milton Friedman.
No, I'm familiar with people who are familiar with him, but I've never actually engaged with his stuff directly.
If you're into that stuff, I really recommend him. He just has a way of wording things. He's kind of like, for me, he's kind of like Peterson, but for economics.
Yeah, for me, that's Thomas Sowell. You ever read Thomas Sowell?
Only when like memes of him pop up and he's got like a really just killer quote.
Yeah,
but I haven't read any.
He's got some great books as well. So that's my interaction with Friedman is like through like basically all of economics that I know is like through the lens of Thomas Sowell, and I wanted to diversify more with like my sources of economics, because that's not, it's not good to have all of your information from one source, but so far that's as far as I've got.
Yeah, that's how I am. Like all my information of Jung and Nietzsche is from Peterson, right? I've never read Jung and Nietzsche, but let's see if there's any other questions. I'm scrolling through. JP's good about asking questions. Thanks, Serious Stuffer. There's so many names in here. So by the way, Poe just said she has a video coming out soon. So obviously, if you want to see that, you should go over there and hit subscribe and give her 1,000 more subscriptions. Because I have a lot of friends on here that probably never saw you before.
Yeah, maybe.
So hope we can get you some subscriptions. If anybody likes what I'm doing here, subscribe to me as well. Let's see. Heimdall's Gate, I think, is the next question.
That guy's classic, or woman, I don't know.
He's from your channel.
It's Poe the Person staple. Yeah.
Cool. What does she think? What does Poe think of the anti-Semitism in the Labor Party? And then in parentheses, he says they announced 45 open investigations earlier today.
I'm really torn on this because I don't really know enough about it, so I don't know if the anti-Semitic, like, as far as I know, for those of you who don't know, if you're not familiar with British politics, the Labour Party, which is the left-wing party, led by Jeremy Corbyn, is now it's got an anti-Semitism problem according to the media. I don't know how much of it is like real or whatever, but a lot of it is basically people in the Labour Party being a little bit too friendly with Muslim groups who are very explicit about their hate for Jews. So it's not that people in the Labour Party are directly saying anti-Semitic things or like criticizing Jews directly. It's that there's a lot of like friendliness, like a bit too much friendliness between certain Muslim groups and the Labour Party, and that's problematic for a lot of people. So I don't know how much, like, I really don't know how much to judge people for, like, I really don't know the extent of these interactions or the feeling there, or like what, like, I really don't know what's going on there. So I don't really want to comment, but I'm basically just explaining what I know about it, which is very little. But it is fairly interesting because it does raise questions about if you're enabling what you could call it the hate group, right? But we use the expression hate group to describe these Islamic organizations that are explicitly anti-Judaism and anti-Jew, anti-Semitic. How much does your association with them have? How much does that say about you as a person? Like, depending on how friendly you're being with them, right? And also, quite aside from that, is this also issue of the Labour hating the rich? Like the same way that the left wing in America, Bernie Sanders always talking about the 1% or the wealth being owned by certain amount of the wealth owned by a certain number of people. Whatever. Turns out quite a lot of those like 1% or like, those really high up percent people, quite a lot of them are Jews, quite a lot of them are Jewish people, like I think in England and in America. So there's also an issue there of Labour being like, hey, we should take away money from these rich people, but also, oh no, because those people are Jews. So now I sound anti-Semitic because I want to take money away from Jews.
This is going to be taken out of context. No. Okay, there are 3 questions here that I see, so we'll wrap it up with those, and then I got my final round of. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Think about it just very briefly, but the same exact questions that Peterson was asked at the end of the GQ interview. I was going to do a fire round.
That's nice.
That'd be cool, yeah. So the next question in chat, though, let's finish up those. Serious Duffer says, what is your favorite book by Soul? And while you answer that, I'm going to grab a water. I'll be right back. I'm listening.
I can't believe I have the stream to myself. Okay. I hope I'm still broadcasting. I'm trying to remember the ones I've read. The first Soul that I read was Black Rednecks and White Liberals, which was about, it was kind of, I don't know if it's like very well substantiated, but he had a theory in it that the Black people in America who were descended from slaves have inherited their culture from Southern white Americans who were different from Northern white Americans culturally. Like they had these kind of, I guess you could call it like bad habits. They were, I don't know. It sounds better when he's saying it because he talks a lot about Black stereotypes. So it made some uncomfortable reading, which was made less uncomfortable because I knew that the author was Black and the guy reading the audiobook was also Black. So that alleviated some of my white guilt. But I'm not really willing to endorse that theory because it like with that theory, you also have to agree with a lot of Black stereotypes about Black culture. This feels a lot weirder now that JP's not here. Hey, you're back.
I'm back.
I was just going. I was just admitting to being a racist. Okay, so that was the first one I read.
Thomas Sowell both.
Yeah, that probably wasn't my favorite Sowell. I'm reading Intellectuals in Society at the moment, which I think might actually be the second book I've read by him, which seems weird. I think I read Marx. Marx is the book about Marxism. That was pretty hard going. It was a short book, but it was difficult to read because I made a video about explaining why I find the theories of Marx very difficult to understand, probably because I'm a big dummy or something. But I'm going to have to say Intellectuals in Society because I'm very much enjoying the, like, there's a kind of all-encompassing nature of the book where he goes over, like, pretty much every single political talking point and talks about the, what he calls the anointed vision of that point, and why people believe this, and like and then what is the like more gritty truth about it. You know, it's like it's kind of like it was like top 10 times Thomas Sowell debunked leftist nonsense. Like if it was a YouTube video, that's what it would be called, but it would be like 40 hours long, talking about like every single thing that any liberal has ever said.
Yeah, you mean Thomas Sowell destroys. He's like,
yeah.
Then you do the work. Oh, there's so many videos like that, and then you watch them, and it's just like a really decent discussion.
Yeah, and then there's like the thug life analysis come down.
Yeah, the Ben Shapiro videos. My God. Yeah. And then Ishan asks, which subfield of mechanical engineering is Poe working in? Also, do you believe Donald Trump will make America great again? Oh,
that's interesting. Okay, so the first question is easy because I'm a product design engineer, which means I don't actually get to do much maths. And something like I don't do a lot of the tricky stuff that you might associate with mechanical engineering. That like a lot of the degree that I did actually doesn't influence like how I do my job. Mostly in my job, I do 3D models and drawings. And I also put in thought to how a product is going to work. So how is it going to like not let water in? How are we going to get the cables and things in while still keeping the water tight? You know, all that sort of thing is.
Are you allowed to say what your products are?
Electronics, like it's right. Even if I could say, as in, I'm not really worried about you finding out, but like. I work for a consultancy, which means that I work on like pretty much anything that comes my way. Like whatever people want to pay my like the consultancy that I work for. If someone's got a mad idea and they've got some money, you can pay us to make it for you.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's anything and everything basically.
And is Donald Trump making America great again?
Oh yeah, I forgot. We'll see, right? Like I don't want to say that he's not, or that he, that he will or he won't, because I'm just going to end up looking like an idiot when my prediction is like false. I think he's definitely surprised me with how he hasn't effed up too badly, and like it's been fairly amusing to see how actually like minor, like I want to say like the predictions that a lot of the media made about what his presidency would be like were catastrophic, to the point where anything less than the Third Reich is now, would look very tame and make them look stupid. They really set themselves up for failure there. So, yeah, I don't think he's gonna make. I don't think he's gonna initiate a Fourth Reich or any kind of fascist regime. I think probably America's. Like, I don't know, like I've seen all the graphs of comparing his presidency to Obama's presidency, and it kind of just seems like the transition of presidents made no difference whatsoever. It just, the trends continued. So like good for him, like he's continued the good trends of Obama's presidency. So great. Maybe the president doesn't even matter. Like maybe America will be great because of great inventors, like great business, great people. Like maybe the president doesn't actually matter to how good the thing is, as long as they just don't F up too badly.
I think, and Shapiro talks about that. He wishes we lived in a country where, whoever won, they just did their job. It didn't really matter if it was a Democrat or a Republican. If they're truly representing the people, then they're going to be pretty indistinguishable, minus, a little bit of, their character.
Yeah, I mean, really, democracy should be protecting Americans from, anything really bad happening, right? So, yeah, we'll wait and see. I don't want to make any predictions. I don't think he's gonna. I don't think America's gonna be a shithole country by the end of by 2020. I'll be very interested to see whether he wins another election in 2020.
I think he might. I hope he does. I mean, I don't know who he's running against, so we'll see. But at least you didn't answer, America was never great.
Yeah, I mean, America's pretty great. I mean, I already told you that I'm a big weeb for America. So, I mean, maybe that makes me, some kind of racist because, obviously slavery is bad. I'm not going to say, like, America didn't do bad things. Like, of course it did. Like, every country has, like, horrible stuff in their past. Like, I mean, every single country. And a lot of countries have really bad stuff in their recent past, and yeah. I'm going to leave it there because I don't want to dig myself a hole.
No, it's good. And then that third question was, it was not serious stuff for someone else, wasn't it? Or maybe that was it. Maybe that was the third question.
Yeah, you said we were going to do the Jordan Peterson's GQ questions.
Yeah, I thought there was one more, and I don't know. I'm
not.
not.
Probably crying now because they were so close to having their question answered.
Give me 1 second. I just want to make sure because now I would feel so bad. Yeah, I think that. Oh no, there was one more, and it was. Do you agree? It was by Colorblind Hero. Do you agree with Jordan Peterson that YouTube will replace television?
Oh yeah, I hope so. That would be really great. And I think it's definitely. Go on.
Oh no, you answer first.
I was saying, like, I just 100% agree with what Jordan Peterson says. Like, the YouTube can do things that TV can't, and yet YouTube can also do everything TV can. They've got the money, they've got the infrastructure, they've got the talent, right? Like, there's once the old people who like TV start dying off, then the new generation of like internet watchers, they're not going to go back to TV going like, oh, I love watching adverts every 15 minutes and like you're just watching watching things at the time that they're airing, like who's going to want to go back to that?
I mean, I kind of missed it. Like this is live, and I hope people watch it the time it's airing. But I know you don't mean live. You mean like new Game of Thrones episode just got dropped.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to watch football live, that makes sense, right? You want to watch football at the time it's happening.
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, if it's not YouTube, it's definitely this medium, right? Like this idea of live chats, live entertainment, or even just pre-made videos that you can watch on demand, I think is exactly what's going to be in the future. And already, like we just cast stuff from our phones now to the TVs. Which is insane. I wonder if that'll become more seamless. Like I wonder if you could be like at a bar and like there'll be like a little screen or something, and then you guys can like share video. I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking like an old.
I'd love to go to a bar like that.
Yeah, right. Wouldn't that be cool? I was at a bar and I accidentally casted to their Chromecast. I was like, well, because the lady like the week before gave me like the Wi-Fi password. She's like, hey, I'm not supposed to, but it was private for like the employees. She's like, but here's the Wi-Fi password. I was like, oh, thank you very much. And I used it to browse the web. And then I was like on YouTube and I hit the cast button and it just went to one of their TVs. I was like, my God. I was able to cancel it in time, but maybe I should put like Ruben or Peterson on. That would have been interesting.
You could red pill the whole bar.
What's that?
You could red pill the whole bar.
Right? That would be amazing. All right. So we're going to do, for those of you who didn't see the GQ interview, there were so many things I hated about that interview. I'll give the devil its due. The interviewer, this lady, she was obviously very smart and she thought a lot about like, well, people are going to get on me for that. You could tell she's thought a lot about her views. I'm not so sure you could say she's thought a lot about other people's views, but overall that interview, it was good, but it made me so mad because I don't know if I just have like a bond with Peterson now, but I could just feel what he was feeling, and it was anger. It was like this recognition that you're in a gotcha interview,
Yeah. No, to be honest, just to quickly talk about that interview, because we were going to talk about it, but we didn't. But we had a good chat
from the interview.
Yeah, but what I was going to say about the interview was that just the obvious comparison was to the Kathy Newman interview. Like both British like self-proclaimed feminist women. And just compared to that, I think I can't remember this lady's name, but this GQ lady, she did, I think, much better. Like she actually was much better at engaging with his ideas, and like even though she didn't agree with him, she actually got what he was talking about just a little bit more. And I think they had a better discussion just because of it.
Yeah, Kathy Newman did set a low bar, but
Yeah,
points taken. Like, and I bet you she was like, you know how like before sports games they study the other team. I wonder if she was studying that interview just to make sure she didn't make the same mistakes.
yeah.
If I was her manager, I totally would make sure of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so at the end, she did these like just really fast, short answer questions. So I'm going to ask the same questions. I had to modify some of them because, you know, I can't ask you how your life would be different if you were born a female. So we'll start at the top, and you'll remember these. Who's your favorite author?
This is too hard. Like Jordan Peterson took like 6 seconds to like think of this, so I'm just gonna think of like the first really good author I can think of.
Okay.
Oh, Neil Gaiman.
All right.
I'm gonna go with Neil. Is fiction. Like I love fiction, to be honest. Like books, you know. I mean, they're supposed to be quick fire, so Neil Gaiman. No end.
That's another female stereotype, the fiction.
Yeah.
Then who's your favorite? I'm guessing Neil's a man. So who's your favorite female author?
Diana Wynne Jones.
What does she write?
Another fiction author. Children's fiction, actually.
Okay.
Really, really imaginative stuff.
Cool. When did you last cry?
Oh, this is a funny story. I cried last night. I was getting rid of some junk in the attic. I was putting away junk, actually. And to put away junk, I wanted to get rid of some junk first. So I took down this teddy bear from the attic. Like, it's a little thing. I've got it over there, but I won't show it. It's just this little teddy bear that I used to have, that I kept in a box just because I kind of remembered having fond memories of it, and it was only little, so I thought it wouldn't take up much space. But I thought, like, I don't need this. I put it in the bin. My husband saw it in the bin, and he thought he'd like take it out and torment me with it. So he brought out the teddy bear, and he was like hiding it behind the like he had like a corner of the wall. He was like hiding it behind the corner so that it looked like his hand wasn't on it. It just looked like the bear was like talking to me.
Yeah.
And he was doing the. You ever seen Toy Story 2?
A long time ago.
The plot of Toy Story 2 is about toys getting left behind by their owners. And there's an extremely sad song that one of the dolls, the cowgirl doll, sings about how her owner left her behind. So my husband's got this bear, and he's pretending that the bear is singing the song, and it's so dumb. Like I'm laughing the whole time, but I've also got tears in my eyes.
It was a laugh cry.
Yeah, no, like I do laugh cry, but it was a genuine, like it wasn't a laugh cry. It was a laugh and a cry. I know the difference.
The crying wasn't just because you were laughing so hard. The crying was because it was sad.
Yeah, it was. I was like, but then I was also laughing because I knew it was absurd to be crying because I knew the bear isn't alive, you know.
So maybe it could be better categorized as a cry laugh.
Yeah, could do. I actually cry all the time about dumb stuff like that.
Another female stereotype.
Yeah.
And I should have just done that the whole interview, just called out the female stereotypes. See, this is why I'm not agreeable. This is why.
Long hair, high voice, laughs a lot.
Yep. All right. So, ready for the next one?
Sure.
Who is your smartest opponent? Or another way, who is the smartest person that has views that oppose yours?
Well, you wouldn't know them. Like all the people that I spar with, like in real life. I do talk to people online, but I can't really judge how smart they are. So I know I have friends who are communists, like what do you call it, Leninist? No, not Leninist. That's the bad one. Marxist. Like like very socialist friends, and they're very smart people, right? I don't think they're stupid, but I think they're completely wrong about communism. So they, I still respect them as people, and I respect their opinions, but I vehemently disagree with them about that.
Do they argue their stance as well?
No, I mean that's kind of harsh. Just it seems like pretty stock Marxist responses, if that makes sense. Like they've read up very well on Marxist and like socialist theory, so they know all of the answers. Like it's like they've studied for the test. So although the arguments are good, like I can tell it's not their argument, you know.
Yeah, I find like any question you ask a Marxist, feminist, whatever, I'm trying not to be redundant, but there's some nuance into the differences.
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like they could just answer, well, punching up is different. That's okay. Punching up is a concept that comes up in my life like weekly. I don't know why.
Okay.
All right, what big question don't you know the answer to?
This is too hard. Like immediately what I thought of was does God exist? And yet at the same time that seems like not that important a question almost, like because I've been listening to Jordan Peterson so much, it seems like if we act like God exists, to me, like that's a scientific question, even though Jordan Peterson doesn't see it that way. He sees it as like, how do we behave kind of question. But I think actually I do think it's a question like that is kind of important, is like whether there really is a guy there. Like, is there really a guy watching us who like controls things, or did he make the universe? Is there a creator of the universe? But I actually think that's not so important, because the most important thing is like now, like what is like how do people act? Like what is going to make the world better versus what's going to make it worse? And I think for questions like that, I think the most important question is like, I guess like is conservatism is it a, what do you call it, like an illusion? Like is progress always better than conservatism, like as long as it's slow and measured? Like are we just going to keep going forward, or is there like a plateau we're going to reach where it's like we've perfected civilization and we've perfected the political system and we no longer need progress? And you know, like have we reached that? Like is there going to be a level of progress beyond what we have now? I think is like something I'd really like to know.
Like, how do we know when we have it right?
Yeah, how do you know when you're finished?
Yeah. Good question. When did you last change your mind about something important?
This is this is too hard. Like it's almost because I'm not because it was too recent. I'm not sure about it, but I've definitely been like more, like I was talking about earlier about patriotism and nationalism and stuff. Like I'm not a full-on fascist anymore, but sorry, I don't mean I'm not a full-on fascist
Anymore.
Yeah, I'm not. I never was. But I did. I listened to an interesting interview with an author recently, talking about how a lot of the things that people value, like liberalism and libertarianism and like personal personal values, they think those are important, but they also don't appreciate what it takes to protect that. Right. So like, of course, it would be better if the whole world was, I don't know, like cool and liberal and like, equal, cool with women's rights and, groovy like us. But unfortunately, they're not. And a lot of other cultures would like to encompass our culture, like, and destroy it. And I've recently been more sympathetic to the idea that we actually do need to protect that. Right. And like, I'm not sure about that. There's something I'm still thinking about, if that makes sense. Rather than just being like cool libertarian, like, oh, why do we need the government? Like, why do we need borders? Like, everyone just be cool and groovy with each other. And we'll just shoot all the guys who are bad or something, like I guess I've been flirting with more patriotic ideas, like the idea that patriotism is actually important.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. When was the last time you lied?
the one that comes to mind is that I made an excuse that wasn't true because I didn't want to go to a Christmas party that someone invited me to. So I got invited to this Christmas party. There was like it wasn't a party, it was like a meal, you know, like a meal out of the pub. And I didn't know any of the people going. There was 2 people going I did know who I kind of liked, but I just knew that like there was a good chance I wasn't going to sit next to them. And I thought like the rest of the people would just be boring weirdos. And I just said like, oh, I'm busy, I can't make it, sorry. I'd love to go. That was like the biggest like straight up falsehood that left my mouth. You know, that I like tried to convince someone of something that wasn't true.
And how do you sleep at night?
I've honestly I've been running over the scenario thinking like, what should I have done? Like, I don't think it was right to lie, but I also don't want to tell this person that I think that their friends are all weirdos. So like I've been trying to figure out like what I should have said, and I still haven't got an answer yet.
Yeah, that's a tough one, because even an ambiguous "I'm not going to make it," which is true, it just begs for more questions. Like, oh, why? What are you doing?
Yeah, no, still, I think that would not sit well with me if I said I couldn't make it. Like, I wanted, you know, the truth would be like, yeah, I don't really want to, you know, that's like, that would just be too difficult for me to say. It's like, no, I don't fancy that.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to make it is different than I can't make it.
That's true. Yeah, yeah. I'm not. Yeah.
I mean, it depends on how you feel about omission. It could still be wrong.
Okay.
Okay, let me see. Where was I on this? What is the most important to you in life?
What is, sorry, was there a word missing there? What is most important, or what is the most important?
What is I think I added a word. What is most important to you in life?
That's too hard. I'm gonna say like my family. Like, not obviously my parents and my siblings are important to me, but I'm talking about my future family. So I got married, and I've committed to this life with my husband, and we want to start a family together in the future. And that's my, like, to me, that seems like my biggest responsibility. Like, I decided to do this. Nobody made me make these decisions. And I have to take responsibility for that above pretty much everything else. Right. So I'm no longer the most important thing in my life. Like, I have to think about the future of me, my husband, and whatever other people we might bring into this family for, like, from now until I die. Like, that's a commitment I've made, which is kind of scary to think about, but it's definitely like that. Like, I don't want to make any mistakes that are gonna like blow up in 20 years. You know, like, I'm committed to keeping things, you know, as good as possible, running smoothly.
Oh, that's good, and that's noble. Life has purpose for you, it seems, where you're run-of-the-mill nihilist. I don't think they can give it like that. So I don't know why Heimdall's Gate is telling me to say something. He said, tell Poe Benjamin Boyce is trying to stream bite. Haha, just kidding, but say it. I don't even know what
stream bite.
What is that?
Okay. Well, apparently there's a little birdie in my ear telling me that the stream biting means when another streamer is streaming at the same time as you to steal your viewership. And I guess that actually does make sense, because I have a big overlap between me and Benjamin Boyce. Like, our Venn diagrams have a crossover. So now there's a bunch of people going like, I want to watch Poe, but I also want to watch Benjamin, and they're going to have to make a decision.
Man, I watch his videos. I wonder if he tuned into this one at all.
He'd probably talk to you. He likes having talks to people. So you should definitely get in touch with him if you want to continue doing interviews with Jordan Peterson-y people.
Yeah, I mean, I'm open to anybody. I just want to get better at like asking questions, and you know, Dave Rubin kind of inspires me. You know.
Okay.
and Larry King inspires him, so it's all good.
Right.
Okay, so how would your life have been different if you were born male? And don't say single orgasms.
I was so surprised when he said that in the interview. Like that really shocked me. Like I don't know if he was just trolling or what. Like
That was great. He just completely he avoided the whole accidentally saying something that could be misconstrued as sexist. You know?
Yeah, no, I think well, just to go back to the most important thing in my life, which would be different, obviously. Like I think being a man, it's difficult. If it's difficult to find a suitable mate, right? Like I think it's harder for men in the dating world to find to find women. So assuming that I'd be a straight man, I think I would be right now I'd probably be single right now, desperately trying to find a woman to seed and to start a family with. Maybe I wouldn't be that mature yet. Maybe I'd still be like shopping around just for like some groovy chick who could hang out with me. Why do I keep saying groovy? I'm sorry, I've never said groovy like in my life, and I'm saying it so much.
Somebody smoking pot near you or something?
Yeah, so I think that like the relationship side of my life will be completely different. Although I think my career would be quite similar. And maybe I still have a YouTube channel even.
Yeah, maybe you'd be a male feminist.
Sure, yeah.
No, I doubt it. How would you like? What's your biggest regret?
I made a video recently about the friend zone. I don't know if you saw that. Like it was called the asymmetry of Me Too, and it's pretty heavy. I don't want to get into the details, but I treated some men in my life badly when I was quite young. Although I can't attribute it to naivety. I wasn't so young that I didn't understand what was going on, but that's definitely a source of guilt for me. Is the way that I treated people in a way that I now find reprehensible, and to know that I'm capable of that is disturbing almost. So that's my biggest regret, is treating men badly.
You got me. I'm gonna have to watch that later. Okay, and then the final one, and it's a good one. How would you like to be remembered?
I went to a family reunion, and this is supposed to be quick fire. I'm sorry. I went to a family reunion last year, 2 years ago actually, maybe I don't know, recently, kind of recently, and my great aunt, which is my grandfather's sister, was there, and she was she was obviously quite close to death. Like she was very ill, but she came to the reunion anyway, and it was very touching for me because it was almost like a goodbye, right? And she had so many descendants there. Like she had a few kids, and each of her kids had a few kids, and there was even a few grandkids around. Like I'm from like another branch of the family. There aren't as many of us, but her branch was like extremely prolific for some reason. And I think I'd love to be when I'm old and dying, I'd love to be like the matriarch of a big family, to be the branch that sprouted really cool people. So even if they don't really remember me, because that's a bit of a pipe dream anyway, right? Like the people are going to remember, like your kids will remember you, and they're going to live a bit longer, and maybe your grandkids will remember you a bit. But to think that people will actually remember you is probably hoping for too much, unless you're famous. So all you can hope is that your legacy, continues, even though people don't even know that you existed anymore. There's people around who wouldn't have been around if you weren't there. Like if I wasn't there, my family wouldn't be there either. So I want to have cool children who go on to have cool children, so that I've got lots of cool people in the world who are there because of me.
Well, if you want to up your chances, you have to have a lot, like 20.
We'll see. We'll try and we'll see how many we can get.
Well, hey, that was good. So thanks for coming on to the show.
It was really cool. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Is there any way, like if people wanted to, obviously if they want to follow your YouTube channel, they can go there. There's a link in the description to that. Do you have a website? Do you have any other way that they could find you? Twitter, anything?
Just Twitter @PoThePerson is like I post random like videos that I like watching, or like articles I think are interesting. I sometimes post there, so that's a pretty good way of keeping in touch with me outside of my videos.
Cool.
I post my videos there, so if you want to keep up to date with them, you might see them on Twitter.
Cool. Well, you heard it from her. So go to Twitter and go to YouTube, follow, subscribe, do all that stuff. God, I sound like the ending part of like a Philip DeFranco video.
Smash the like button, guys.
What's that?
Smash the like button.
Yeah, smash the like button, hit the bell.
The like button.
Yeah. God, I remember when none of that existed. I don't know about you. I was on YouTube like probably 10 years ago, just as a observer.
Yeah.
Some people in the group, Heimdall's Gate just said I have a new subscriber. Thank you very much. Just scrolling through the chat to see if there's any like dying shout outs or questions, and I don't really see anything. They're all just kind of chatting with each other.
Well, good job. Like, I think you're I hope you get better at interviewing. That's not to say that you're bad. I think you did a great job. I had a good time, and I think they enjoyed it. So I hope one day you'll be like Ruben Report, and I'll be like your like before you were famous interview.
That would be great. Or maybe you're like Ruben. Well, not Ruben Report. Do you do interviews on yours, or is that just kind of like your side every now and then thing?
It's a side gig, yeah. I just like talking to people. So.
Well, maybe you'll get you'll be the person that I interviewed before she was famous.
Yeah, maybe it could be. We'll see.
All right. Well, good luck. Thanks again for coming on. Bye to everybody in the chat.
Be well, everyone.